Hello everyone, this is Leah Whitehorse from Leah Astrology with the forecast for January 2023. So firstly, Happy New Year to you all. I hope you had a good festive season and you are looking forward to the year ahead. There's going to be a lot of changes in 2023 with a lot of planets changing signs, Saturn, Pluto, Jupiter, Sedna. There's going to be a lot of energetic shifts during this year. Now, if you want to know more about that and to get a heads up for the year ahead, I have done a year reading over on my Patreon. And also just to let you know that I am now doing a weekly video forecast over on my Patreon as well, just like these monthly forecasts where you get more information about the smaller movements that are happening during the week and also information on the asteroids as well. So as we come into the new month, the new year, we still have Mars retrograde and out of bounds, and also Mercury is retrograde as well. So it feels like we've still got a slow start to this new month, new year. And generally speaking, I feel like this is a quiet month. We've had a lot of really major action that occurred as we had the full moon in Gemini in December, which was conjunct Mars. I certainly felt the effect of that. My home exploded into noise as there were emergency sewer works that began on that date. And I managed to get locked into my house as well because the lock on my front door broke. So that was interesting. I had to sit with the noise. There was no escape from it. So it was really interesting that I was being given a lesson in mental strength. I can't say that I played it very well because I did panic when I couldn't get out of the house and it was very stressful. But I did smile at the same time somewhere inside of me because I recognized what was happening. This is the beauty of astrology, that it gives us material to work with, a better way of understanding what's going on for us. And happily now I can get in and out of my flat, and I actually have 2 spare new keys where I had none before. So coming to this month, on the 3rd of January, Venus will enter Aquarius. She will be there until January the 27th. So when Venus changes signs, it changes how we are attracted, how we express our attraction to others and to things. It changes what we are attracted to. And with Aquarius, this is an air sign. And it is associated with intellect, higher mind, God mind. So we kind of fall in love with people when we make a mental connection with them. We have a need to make a mental connection when Venus goes into Aquarius. But Aquarius is also a sign that loves to have some space. There's a need for freedom in this sign. So it's important that in our relationships with each other, that we give each other space to grow and have new experiences and go off and encounter other things in life, because that gives us a talking point. It gives us something to discuss with one another that's new and different and exciting. There's quite an electrical feeling to Aquarius as well. So sometimes on the shadow side, if we're not feeling comfortable, if we're not feeling that we've got enough freedom in a relationship, then there can be a tendency to switch off, to disconnect, like switching a light switch off. So we just need to watch that tendency to cut off if we are feeling frustrated in a relationship and we're just not getting the space that we need, or we feel like we can't express ourselves uniquely. Generally speaking, Venus in Aquarius suggests that we move into a period of time where we are really interested in things that are new and different, the avant-garde, the modern. We might find that our tastes are changing somewhat, and we find ourselves curiously interested in something or even someone that we've not been interested in before. And again, this is just the nature of Aquarius that seeks to have new experiences, to progress. To have new experiences means that we are more capable of progress, of learning something new and different that we can then apply to our own lives. So there's definitely an experimental side to Aquarius. So if you're interested, just be curious about exploring that option. This is also a really nice time to connect with friends as well, because Aquarius is associated with the group. So making time for the people that you love, a little bit of socializing, that's all a really nice way of expressing Venus in Aquarius. On the 6th of January, we have the first lunation of the year, which is a full moon in the sign of Cancer. This is a very interesting full moon because it is going to be directly opposite the sun, of course, in Capricorn, but also Mercury retrograde in Capricorn. So this full moon is illuminating, is highlighting the tensions that we are experiencing around this Mercury retrograde period. The moon in Cancer is strong because Cancer is the sign that the moon rules. And we tend to get a lot of emotional content coming up because we're really into our needs. We're really into our inner child's needs around this time. And that is vying with all of the responsibilities, the adult stuff that we have to deal with over there in Capricorn. What helps in this chart is that the moon is going to form a tight trine to Vesta and also to Neptune over there in Pisces. So this tells us that the way to eradicate, eliminate, get rid of some of this tension or siphon off some of this tension that's in the chart is to listen to our feelings, to listen to what is coming up from the unconscious, to listen to our dreams and our yearnings. What are you wishing for? What is your inner child wishing for around this time? We just need to listen. And with the moon also sextile to Uranus, that tells us that we have an opportunity to shake ourselves free of some of the insecurities that we've been feeling. So listening to our feelings, listening to our intuition, rather than what our head is telling us, Mercury over there in Capricorn, should help to free us, Uranus, should help to free us from some of the things that have been holding us back or limiting us from expressing our true needs. On the 7th of January, the day after the full moon, the conjunction between the Sun and Mercury will perfect. This is the inferior conjunction, and it marks the midpoint of the Mercury retrograde period. The conjunction between Mercury and the Sun is referred to as Kazimi. It means that Mercury is in the heart of the Sun. I often think of Mercury sitting on the throne of the Sun, elevated, shining like the sun. So now we have Mercury returning to the highest of the high, the sun. For instruction from source, this is the time when the mind is illuminating. Light comes flooding in. Now I know. Now I understand. Now I see it. This is the moment when we receive the information that we need to help us through this Mercury retrograde period. Maybe this is the moment when we get it. We understand, this is what this retrograde period is about. This is what's going on for me. It might be simple that this is the day that you find out some information that's pertinent to what is going on in your life, or you have an important conversation, or you have that sudden realization, especially in Capricorn. Capricorn is very good for realizing things. They become concrete. That vague idea becomes concrete. So now we have these realizations flooding through us. And this should help us to again work through where we have been perhaps limiting ourselves. Capricorn is a sign of limitation, where we've been holding ourselves back from expressing ideas. We talked about expressing needs with the full moon. Now we're expressing ideas, expressing ourselves, talking, communicating. Where have I not been allowing myself to say what I think? Now we have some kind of revelation. On the 12th of January, Mars will station direct. And just be aware that Mars is still going to be covering the degrees where he's been before until the 16th of March. So the shadow period takes us up to the 16th of March for the whole cycle to be completed. But with Mars stationing direct on the 12th of January, this means that we've come to the end of that period, that retrograde period, and we can start to think about pursuing our goals again. Now that we've had some time to rethink everything, to go over everything, to review where we're going. Perhaps we've made some very important decisions or choices, and now we're starting to act on those. I would always give it a couple of days though before taking action, rather than doing anything on the station date itself, because the station days tend to be a little bit wobbly, like nothing is moving, nothing is happening. Mars is going to seem as though it's kind of hanging in the air. So give it a couple of days before striking out on your next mission. But still, we do have a sense, especially from the Sabian symbol, that we're more prepared. The Sabian symbol is a quiver filled with arrows. So we've got what we need now to be able to go out and hunt for whatever it is that we want, to kind of play with that analogy. But still, there is a feeling that we are prepared for any encounters later down the line that try to throw us off track. We can defend ourselves with the arrows. And I also think this Sabian symbol, in reference to Mars retrograde in Gemini, has perhaps given us an idea of when we need to use these defensive maneuvers or weapons, so to speak. The weapon really is the mind. You know, how we use the tool of the mind. This has been what we've been learning as Mars has been retrograde in Gemini, how to use the tools that we've been given, this wonderful tool, the mind, the brain, because when we know how to use the mind effectively, then we are protected, then we are more capable of getting what we want and getting what we need. On the 18th of January, Mercury, the ruler of Gemini, where Mars is at the moment, is also going to station direct. So it almost feels like we're starting to breathe a sigh of relief, because finally we can start to make plans. Finally, we've got a clearer idea of what we're trying to achieve. This was Mercury's retrograde in Capricorn, having to rethink plans, to restructure, to reconsider what we're trying to do out there in the world, maybe thinking about our jobs and careers and responsibilities and all those kinds of things. Now it feels like things are more in order. So we've got a sense of order, a sense of being prepared from Mars, and a sense now that we have tuned in, because the Sabian symbol of the station direct is an angel carrying a harp. So I think it's a really interesting juxtaposition of these two Sabian symbols. Mars stationing direct on the quiver filled with arrows, which feels very practical. And then we've got this very soft and gentle image of the angel carrying the harp, which tells us that when we're feeling mentally prepared for things, Mercury and Capricorn, that also helps us to feel much more tuned into the inner voice. Intuition is not really something we think of so much with Capricorn, but remember that the symbol of Capricorn is a sea goat. So the top half of the symbol is the goat, and then the bottom half is the tail of what looks like a mermaid. So there is a lot of emotional, intuitive content deep down within Capricorn, and this angel carrying a harp really accentuates this. So I think it's a really important time just to stop for a moment, just as Mercury is doing, just to stop and receive. Tune into what is going on within you, calm the mind, and then you will hear that soul song like the harp is illustrating. From there, on the 20th of January, the sun will move into Aquarius, beginning Aquarius season. Happy birthday to all you Aquarians out there. So when we move into Aquarius season, once again, Aquarius, the sign that is associated with progress, with modernization, with things that are new, and space and openness. This is, let's experiment with life. The sun is yourself. I'm going to experiment with who I think I am, because we can get very caught up in a particular self-image. Oh, that's not for me. That's not me. But sometimes we can limit ourselves. Remember, the sun has been moving through Capricorn, so we can hold ourselves back if we don't see ourselves in a certain way. So the sun moving into Aquarius gives us an opportunity every year to experiment with something different, with being different. How can you be different in your life in a way that frees you up, to free up time or energy? Or just to free up your heart. Maybe you've been feeling like, I'm hemmed into my life. So perhaps now this is the ideal time to begin something. We have the new moon in Aquarius on the 21st of January. And this new moon is really interesting because it's going to be in a wide dissociate conjunction to Pluto. So we've got Pluto there at 28 degrees of Capricorn, the new moon at 1 degree of Aquarius. So there's a bit of tension there because they're in different signs, but still we've got a sense that this new moon has some power. It's got some kick to it with Pluto, but also with Mars, because there's a wide trine from the new moon to Mars, of course, now in direct motion. It hasn't got off that degree yet of where it's stationed, but we really get this feeling that there is some impetus, some push to create change in our lives, to really get started with this new year. We've also got a sextile over there to Jupiter and also Juno as well, so the heavenly couple. So there really is this feeling of, I want to bring everything together. I've got this vision and I want to commit to it. And I really need to use all the strength I have to push myself forwards, to face my fears. And I can do this. I think this is a really great chart for this lunation, especially if you have got any big new projects you want to start for the new year or New Year's resolutions. Whatever it is that you want to start does seem to have some added spice because of the connections to Pluto and to Mars. And we're still on this very Aquarius theme, this electric, exciting, new, different energy, because on the 22nd of January, Uranus, the ruler of Aquarius, the modern ruler of Aquarius, is going to station direct as well. And the important thing to note is that now all the major planets are in direct motion. The only minor planet, asteroid, that is still in retrograde motion is Pallas down there in Cancer. So she's still busy working on a lot of the behavior patterns from the past. We've got some extra work to do there. But otherwise, all the planets are in direct motion, which does tend to mean that we too start to feel that we can make some headway because we've got this forward momentum from all the planets. So Uranus stationing direct tells us that, yes, we are ready now for this new energy, for this awakening, for this excitement. And in the retrograde motion, what Uranus was doing was reconnecting us with the parts of ourselves that maybe we had pushed away because they were too different or too weird, or we were sort of worried that other people might have an opinion on something we want to do or experience because it doesn't really fit with who they think we are. And so Uranus in retrograde motion was reconnecting us to all these different parts of ourselves. The inner rebel was becoming more apparent to give us the energy needed to break out of old constructs so that we can make progress in life. The last major movement of the month is Venus's entry into Pisces. This is on the 27th of January, and this transit will last up until February the 20th. This is an important transit because Venus is exalted in Pisces. In other words, Venus works very well in this sign. And this is probably because Venus is all about love and harmony. And Pisces is a sign that is associated with soulfulness, spirituality, and we've really got the sense of unconditional love. This is what makes Venus exalted in this sign. It speaks of unconditional love. Now, I will say that unconditional love does not mean love without boundaries. In fact, sometimes it can be extremely loving to set strong boundaries with others. But this is very much a heart-centered approach with Venus in Pisces, and we can be more loving, more forgiving, kinder, compassionate. This is an excellent period to practice self-compassion. Self-compassion can be incredibly healing. And of course, love, unconditional love expressed to others can also be very healing. And because Venus is in Pisces, this spiritual sign, we might find that we feel more connected to our deity, God, goddess, the universe, or just the higher self, if that's your frame of reference. Just this feeling of being connected at the heart to all that is, being aware that you are part of the cosmos. Venus again symbolizing the idea of harmony. The cosmos is singing. Your energetic frequency sings at a tone that is perfectly aligned with the universe. And if there is something that feels out of tune, then Venus in Pisces is going to make that apparent. Venus is super sensitive to things that are aesthetically out of place and not really working, not really harmonizing. So it's a great time to explore your creativity as well, because through creativity and through imagination, that is one way that you can help to rebalance your energetic frequency, to rebalance your heart, to come back to center. I'm going to turn now to the tarot. And for this month, I'm using the Gilded Tarot by Ciro Marchetti, fantastic tarot deck. And the card that I drew was the Chariot. And as I was looking at the card, I suddenly thought about the fact that 2023 is a 7-year, numerologically speaking, 2 plus 2 plus 3. That equals number 7. So that's where the numerology comes in. And the Chariot is the 7th card of the major arcana. So it's almost like the tarot was just alerting me and alerting us to the fact that this is going to be important. This spiritual journey, the spiritual journey. 7s to me are very much about inner exploration. Yes, the Chariot can speak of many journeys out there in the world, by plane, by bus, by taxi, but it is the inner journey that's important. And 7s in the tarot can sometimes speak of a certain amount of conflict, but it's often the inner conflict that we're just working through something. We're just making a few adjustments. It's not as tense or as anxious as the number 5s in the tarot, the number 5s in the minor arcana in the tarot. But it feels like we're trying to make these adjustments so we can ensure that we're moving in the right direction, So when the Chariot comes up, I mean, here we have this wonderful image of this character sat in this chariot with the Sphinx pulling her. And the Sphinx, I think, represent a certain amount of uncertainty in life, because the Sphinx is a riddle. The Sphinx asks us riddles. And so sometimes, yes, life can feel like one big riddle that we're trying to unravel. And each time we move on to the next stop on our journey, it's like, where are we? What is this about? I've got no idea what's going on. Is this actually the way to where I was trying to get to? I don't know. Is this a detour? I don't know. So there's a lot of I don't know coming through with this Chariot as I'm looking at it. But if we're willing to explore, if we're willing to embrace the journey, then maybe some of these riddles, some of these uncertainties resolve themselves over time. The other powerful message of the Chariot is to say, you are in the driving seat of your life. If you're not in the driving seat, this is a year where you will find your way back to that driving seat. And one of the ways to be in the driving seat of your life, interestingly, takes us back to what I was saying about Mars, the Mars retrograde in Gemini, because the Chariot is associated with the will. When we set our intention, the mind, when we set our intention in the mind, that is what drives us forward. In the Rider-Waite deck, we can see the charioteer has no reins in their hands. So what is driving the Sphinx forward, and the same in this card, is sheer mental will. This is where I am going. This is what I have decided. And that is going to help to drive us forward and feel like we are more in control. Obviously, we can't control everything that's going on around us. We cannot control other people. And yes, there are always things that happen along the way through life. But with this Chariot being here, it really feels like it's saying this is a year to get back on the horse. We've been knocked off the horse quite a few times over the last few years with all the stuff that has been going on, particularly since the Saturn-Pluto conjunction in Capricorn, COVID, all that stuff. But now it feels like we're getting back on the horse. We're starting to move again. So this is about trusting that you can be the driver of your life. Trust your instincts. The Chariot is associated with the moon. So the moon is your gut instincts, your intuition. Remember, we had the full moon in Cancer, where I was saying one of the important stories of that lunation is being able to express your needs, to know what you need and to be able to express your needs. And so the Chariot is now accentuating that this is important because it's part of getting you back in the driving seat of your life. Trust your instincts. That's the main motto, the main message for January 2023. This brings me to the end of this reading. I hope you found it helpful. If you would like to hear more from me, do check out my Patreon, where, as I said, I have a weekly forecast. We also do lunation readings over there as well. There's lots of other content from previous posts, lots to explore there. In the meantime, I wish you many blessings on your path.